Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast. So today we're going to talk about the evolution of spirituality and what do we mean by that? So you've probably heard us talk about or allude to on various podcasts about how things have changed over the decades since people have started awakening at a greater pace. Just old paradigm versus new paradigm, old energy versus new energy, and what does that look like? So we're going to kind of just talk for a little bit about that and what does it mean for us? What do we need to know about that? So I know there was a yet unnamed medium, famous gentleman who you've alluded to,
yes,
working in the old paradigm, essentially.
Oh, Lord.
And that kind of, and we're not going to name names, but that kind of is what we're talking about with the old paradigm. And Cryon talks about this a lot when he says things are changing and the energy now on Earth is not the same energy. And so people are having gifts that are popping on and
in all kinds of ways.
And so they're breaking barriers and breaking boxes outside of boxes and all of that kind of stuff. And, right. So
it's a good thing.
Why don't you start us off with that? What does that old paradigm look like to you?
Okay. So I've been in this for a lot longer than these guys have I guess,
For sure.
So I started this journey, back in my 20s. So I remember, back then, like if you were going to learn how to do tarot readings, you learned exactly what the colors were and what the swords meant and what the pentacles meant and all that kind of stuff. And you learned it in just such a way. Or if you learned anything about crystals or, it was always, and it's funny because they didn't talk about grounding as much. It was all about protection. You had to have protection.
So protection was a big buzzword from the old paradigm.
And so you had to have protection. And there was a certain prescribed way of doing things. And if you stepped out of that prescribed way of doing things, well, were you breaking the walls of protection, or you wouldn't get as good of information or. So there were all these things that kept you confined in this very tight protocol. And if you stepped out of it, then you weren't following so-and-so's edicts anymore, so like you couldn't be part of the cool kids club because you were no longer doing thus and such. And, I remember one particular thing that occurred where, I had been in an experience where I saw people like they were giving light to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at this dojo place I was at. And I'd never had such good peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Like it was like, and I was like, I got to learn how to do this, not because the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but because it was applied. I understood that there was more to this. And throughout all of these constructs that I've seen, I have been one of the rules breakers. It's just been my path, and much to the chagrin, I have been thrown out of so many groups I can't even begin to tell you. Because you're not following. If you're not following, then you're going to lead astray anyone else. You're going to
bring in something bad.
Well, or the person who's created this construct of things that follow, they need to keep that power. They need to keep, so it's like, you've got to follow this. So in this particular thing with light healing, you had to sit in front of this, a gong thing, for 2 days while you were learning these concepts, and you had to memorize this really long passage, and it was like in an Asian language. I'm trying to keep this generic because I'm very actually respectful of what these people do, again, because belief is what makes intent, makes it happen. But there were these things where, you got this beautiful medallion, you had to wear it above your heart. If you leaned over, it couldn't go below your heart or it was ruined somehow. And it got deeper and deeper as you got in. Well, first off, I ended up getting in, I wasn't local to the place. I'd only gone in once and thought this was amazing and said, I want to learn how to do this. And they said, well, you have to be a member. And I'm like, but I want to learn how to do this. They're like, but you have to be a member. And I said, well, who do I speak to? Well, you have to speak to the dojo leader. And I'm like, okay. And he's only here every so often. And I'm like, well, when is he going to be here? And they're like, well, he's here this time. And I'm like, well, can I talk to him this time? Well, you don't have an appointment. This is when I'm here. Can I do this? And they go back and talk to the guy and he lets me in. Well, he interviews me and he says, yes, you can come to our next class, which is the following weekend. There were so many pissed people because I was supposed to be an acolyte. And the reason why I needed to be an acolyte was so that I learned that I had to follow the rules because these were very strict rules. So anyway, I learned what I was supposed to learn and I could do this, you know, the light healing because it was intent. And I remember talking to the person that brought me to this and saying to them, you know, you don't have to wear the pendant and you don't need to say the words to give light. I just knew that. And we got into this, like, he's very mindful, it was a respectful conversation, but he's like, but that's outside of what we're taught. And you may believe that, but that would be incorrect. And I'm like, but I'm doing it, you know? And he's like, well, and so anyway, they asked me to give the medallion that I had earned back.
Yeah.
And I was booted from the group. And
so they stripped you of your superpowers.
Yes, supposedly. Yeah. And so I worried that I wouldn't be able to stop a bullet anymore. And that was one of the examples that you could stop a bullet if you said this stuff and you knew how, you know, anyway.
That's useful.
So it is useful if you ever find yourself in that particular circumstance.
In a firefight.
Yeah.
Hopefully you remember the juju that you have to do to stop the bullet before the bullet hits you.
That juju you do.
Right.
But anyway, that was the culture that I was brought up in back in the day. No matter where you went, it was certain prescribed rules.
Yeah.
You enter circles this way, you face east, west, north, south, you address all of the powers that be. It was such a long process. And I'm just kind of going, nope, I got to get there. It's got to be done. And so I kept breaking the rules. The other thing that was going on is, of course, the perception of all of this kind of work. And I remember I wanted to buy some more of these kinds of books, you know, Conversations with God and things from Sylvia Brown, stuff like that. So I went to a flea market to sell some of the books I had. I had people coming up to me going, oh, you're into the occult. Sylvia Brown, I'm into the occult, seriously. And they were like, you know, this is stuff of the devil. And I mean, this is in Tampa, Florida, and I am getting bombarded with this. And I was kind of going, what am I not understanding here? Because I so couldn't understand that point of view.
Sure.
But it was enough that kind of made me like that. I dimmed my light a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
I was a little bit more careful about it. And it wasn't until years later that I really started to resurface with it again. I mean, like I was still practicing it by word of mouth, but that was the world I was brought up in. And it was very strict, very rules following. And, you know, we have a lot of people now, like we were saying, that are currently, still leading classes and so forth on how to do this stuff. And they're still trying to exert that control of the group of, I'll tell you when you're ready. I'll tell you when you're good enough. I am the one, I am the gatekeeper.
Right.
I am Jesus Christ. All things come through me. You know, it's like that kind of and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean that, you know, like there's only one way. And we now know that that's okay. So I'm going to open it up to these guys. I just wanted to set that stage of where I came from. It's just,
and so some of these practitioners that we're talking about are the veterans. And while we completely, and we've said this before on the podcast, understand the pains that they took to pave the way for those of us who are coming in now.
And those rules may have been very necessary back then.
Right. But the energy has changed. And so the people, like Cryon says, the people who are going to make it are the ones who can be flexible, make use of these new energies, break out of that box, break out of those rules. Now, I have said this before too. I'm not a rule follower either. It's surprising to me that I made it out of the Army without being put in the brig or something. Why I joined, well, I know now, but it was kind of, it's
a mystery.
It doesn't make sense, right?
Right. It doesn't align with the person that you see sitting before you. So yeah.
Right. And I don't suffer fools. So I have a hard time with all of that. And so I'm a natural in the new energies, but the new energies we're talking about breaking out of boxes. We're talking about breaking out of labels, not understanding what to call ourselves or how to describe what we do. Because like we said, people are coming onto this earth or waking up, their DNA is turning on all of a sudden, people in their 30s, 40s or whatever. And they're like, oh my gosh,
and not just those that kind of grew up in a spiritually grounded family structure. No, we're talking corporate people who wear suit and tie and are
people don't fit this mold.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. And they're coming in with these gifts and light language and claircognizance and mediumship and all of these sorts of things.
Well, and just drawing, and all of a sudden from drawing, getting all of these insights and awarenesses and stuff. And it's like, it's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
It's just,
and they can do these things. They can heal without the rules and without the permission slips and all of that kind of stuff. And so when you tell them, I'm sorry, no, that's not accurate, and you're not following the guidelines and all of that, you know, you're doing a hindrance to these people who are trying to live in alignment and to go forth in what they know and to help others.
The area that I struggle in is just that it's for myself. It was an example of myself understanding that I'm doing something outside the construct of what I was just taught. So because
you are a rule follower.
Yes.
27 years in the military.
Yeah. I mean, it's just inherently ingrained in me that yes, I'm going to follow the rules because that's what they're there for. They're there to put a structure around something that I don't understand. Now, what I will say is, yes, I'm a rule follower on the initial stages. Once I understand what I'm doing, doesn't matter whether it's in the corporate world or in the military or whatever, or even in the metaphysical space. Once I understand where I'm operating in, then I know where my boundaries are and I can expand those boundaries out. I don't have to be, kept into a tight little widget box of understanding. I can maneuver within that space very easily, very fluidly.
But like what you're saying is that it is helpful to have structure.
Yes.
In the beginning when you're trying to learn something,
yes.
But then it's about making it your own.
Well, but how do you make it your own? You first have to realize, okay, well, what you're doing may not be what you were just taught. For me, it was Reiki. So I had the understanding, the concepts and the structure of Reiki. I knew that's what it was. But when I first started practicing Reiki, very first clients, it was well beyond Reiki. Getting intuitive information, getting psychic information, getting mediumship information. I mean, the floodgates of information were just being opened up. I was seeing, I was being presented with, I was getting information for my clients that they were like, how in the world? You don't know me. How do you know this stuff? I don't know. But here's the information I'm giving you. Well, when I take that back to my Reiki master and express to them, well, this is how it's going and this is what I'm experiencing. That's not Reiki. Stop doing that.
Old
how
paradigm.
do you stop something that you have no control of?
Yeah.
Right. So that's again, here's my box of Reiki. That's where I operated in. But wait a minute. Now my boundaries have been pushed out this far. That's my operating space, right? That's my zone of comfort.
And now we know that's kind of the goal.
That is exactly the goal. So how do you make it your own? It's trusting and knowing your own space in which you operate. If you need that structure for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that's good.
But don't let it hinder you.
But don't, right. But if you start to feel yourself expanding beyond that and things are being incorporated into what you're doing, don't go, oh, nope, that doesn't fit in the box. Stop doing what you're doing.
Right.
You're only to do this. We're evolving energetically to a place at which the boundaries across all planes of existence, all planes of all different realms of reality are being blurred. And, your experience of being able to manipulate and go into those areas is a lot different than myself and a lot different than I mean,
we've come at it from different angles.
Right. We all come from a different angle. We're all coming into those different planes of reality differently. And we're all picking up on something differently. And it's how we, our individual selves, harness that. And it's how we harness that for not for ourselves. By no means is this for ourselves. This is for our clients. because they
Or
may,
the world, just
or for the world,
giving
right.
it to whoever.
It's for
Yeah.
who's there to receive it. And
Mhm.
so sure, we advertise that we do Reiki. Sure, we advertise that we do certain things. But when the client comes and sits down in front of us, that's just to get them in. I don't want to say it that way. It's not just to get them in the door, but that's what brings them in.
Gives
But
them the
that's-
best
Gives them
That's the
understanding.
label they understand.
Oh, I
right?
understand.
Yeah.
I understand Reiki, right? And then when we sit and talk to them, and then we get to understand, oh, they're a lot more open than what we perceive them to be.
Mhm.
Well, here's what might come through during your session. Not always, but it might come through. Or you come for a channeling session and it's, here's what a channeling session is going to be. Okay, you understand channeling. There may be some profound healing that comes out of it. There might be light language that's thrown in there. There might be some sort of, opening to
Mhm.
healing that happens. So but if I were to say, well, I'm just here to channel just this,
That would be so
I'm limiting
sad.
myself.
Yeah.
But this is why we talk about, and our friend Judy, we've had on here before, we talk about how difficult it is to label ourselves.
Yeah.
Because labels are dissolving. So how, we understand we don't want to label or put ourselves in a box, but at the same time, we have to be able to explain to people, what are we offering, right? So how do we?
Maybe the world, and this, we had another recording that we had done with a wonderful gentleman, Mark. And what's interesting in that discussion that I picked up on, and I was like, oh, that all of a sudden hit me, is that I feel like we're going to go back to the 1600s, where you were known by the action that you
outcome,
did.
the
Yes.
outcome.
Yes.
And I feel like that's going to be the thing, because when you say you're a healer, well, you're not saying you do Reiki,
Right.
and you're not saying, granted, people are starting to get an idea, but if you just say the end result, like, and it's also challenging, because if I say, well, I heal the soul, you don't know if that's going to be emotional.
I talk to dead people.
Yeah. You're going to, it's really, really challenging, because a lot of the stuff we do,
Mhm.
people don't necessarily want to come to us for, like, if I say, well, I do, inner child work, they don't want to hear that,
Right.
because they don't want to do the work, and the work hurts. It's emotionally
Yeah.
upheaval,
Yeah.
and it creates emotional upheaval in your life. But if you want to feel better, I just, maybe I help people feel better.
I like the idea
You're a
of
feel
focusing.
betterer.
I'm a feel betterer.
I like that
I like
focusing on the outcome, though. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think as you were
Well,
speaking
that's
about.
what you do for marketing. But it's
Yeah.
like, but that's what we got to say
Right.
now, maybe.
That makes sense. And I was trying to think of what I would say to our clients if they said, like, what's the outcome? And it would be a greater clarity for you along your path and understanding of how your past
I'm a clarier.
influences your future, and
I'm trying a few of these out.
guidance for you to make better decisions in the future. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Well, because, okay, so I was so proud when I could say I'm a medium.
Mhm.
Okay. I
course.
owned it. I had worked hard for that title, supposedly, and so, and ever since I've called myself that, I have had more like, well, but am I as good as this person, or am I doing it the way this person is doing it? Or am I this,
I
that?
agree.
Oh my God. And if I just say, hey, I connect you with loved ones, it would have been like,
Yeah, I
bought into the
still
label.
struggle with it, though I function in that space exceptionally well. I struggle with calling myself a medium. I do, or a psychic, because there's more involved with it when I make my connections than just that.
Exactly. And that's where the conundrum comes
Yeah.
in of what we call ourselves,
Right.
which is why saying the outcome,
Mhm.
people know right away.
I
Oh,
love
you're going
that.
to help me feel better.
Mhm.
How are you going to do that? And then we can talk about how we're going to do that.
Right.
Or, you're going to connect me with loved ones,
Mhm.
I don't know, something
Yep.
different. Because it just doesn't, there's too many things like, okay, I love watching Toby's work.
Yeah.
And she's one of those people that,
we have done a show with her. You can check
Toby
that out. Toby
Elbell.
Elbell. Mhm.
and, but she's like one of those people where, here she has come into this thing that is uniquely her own.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've always wanted my own thing. And I was so busy looking at what everyone else was doing that I didn't realize I was creating my own thing.
Creating your own thing. That's
Yeah.
right.
And so here she's created, like, she does a lot of the same things that I do, meaning she's learned from a lot of the same avenues or whatever.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
yet what she does, so she can just say, well, I do tarot or I do this, but she has merged these things and created something so unique and beautiful. And it's so much fun to listen to her
Yeah.
discover the messages and everything. And I think that that's what's so fascinating about this. You know, you take someone who, you know, draws and all of a sudden they see all these things, or someone who just is putting their hands on someone and there's a whole story that
Yeah.
comes, you know. So it's just sit back, let me do my thing. You want to feel better? Just let me do my thing.
Mhm.
You know, it's like,
You know,
trust us. Yeah.
What comes to
and
mind
look
is
at the referrals or the reviews.
Right.
for a while, as we were coming onto our path, you know, the practitioners they were using this specific term of alchemy. I'm an alchemist.
You still hear that
What does that mean?
frequently.
What
You
does
know
that mean?
well, it's the blending of multiple things to have one outcome.
Oh,
So an alchemist back in the, you know, medieval times or whatever, and they would
But
go to an
it's
alchemist
usually
they would blend metals together and
Or
come
chemicals
out
or
or chemicals,
whatever.
and you'd have an outcome. Well, a modern day alchemist is utilizing spiritual alchemist is utilizing many different spiritual tools to have one specific outcome. But to me, that again is too broad. It's too many people don't. If I had somebody come off the street and go, well, what do you do? I'm an alchemist. I'm a spiritual alchemist. You get the same glossed over look that you do when you say, well, I am a, you know, a transdimensional channelist. You know, it's like, what does that mean? You know, I don't know what that means. But to Mark's point, our previous, you know, guest, I'm a healer. That is enough to open a door for somebody to feel, oh, okay.
And then they can read the description of your outcome, right?
Right.
Well, that's where, like, I'm just sitting here as we're talking going, Jesus God, I'm going to throw away my business cards and start over
again.
We're going to redo it all again.
Because, you know, and I only order like 50 at a time, specifically because I keep evolving with what I'm doing. And to me, it's like, I know that and this is what I should put, I help people feel better in one session. That's not putting a therapist down, or, you know, or social worker or whatever, because I don't do what they do. I don't take someone who is, and you know, we can deal with the same people coming in having the same problems, but some people need to take it slower.
Yeah.
Some people have other things going on in the background that have them more volatile, and they have to learn certain mindfulness techniques. So it's a different
place
thing
for that.
Yeah. But if you're trying to noodle something out, you can spend 6 weeks going to a therapist trying to noodle it out, or you can come to me and we'll get to the root of it in one session. But then, you know, yes, we can then, how do we, because like what they're doing is you're taking longer to come to the conclusion, but you're also making shifts. When you come to me, I'm telling you what the conclusion is. And then you could either go to a therapist, or you could come to me and I could sit there and do that process with you.
Yes.
Because there is a process, or I can send you to other people. So there's all kinds of stuff there. But I think that right there to me is the significant thing. And like you're saying, healer. And I want to own that too, because I'm healing people. But, you know, to me, that implies that I'm doing energy work. And well, I am doing energy. This is what's so confusing. It's
see, we're trying to figure it out on the fly as we go here today.
The connotation with healing means you're going to be laying hands on something, because that's what's been built in people's minds of, well, you're doing healing, which means you're going to be either doing Reiki or craniosacral or doing some sort of physical modality with me versus your higher self or loved ones or psychic or whatever. Well, that's not a tangible feature within those modalities, right?
Yeah.
So, but still, healer's enough to open the doorway of, you know, your cognitive reasoning to say,
but it
you
still
know,
doesn't mean everybody should put healer on.
No.
Now it's making me think more that I want to say, I'm the person you come to when you're feeling pain and you don't know where else to go. Start with me. I'm the starting point.
That's a big business card.
Yeah. There's not even going to be a picture of me. It's just going to be that.
Words. Right.
And because here's the thing though, is that like, an acupuncturist is an acupuncturist.
Sure.
Now they might do other things too, but they are like, I am an acupuncturist.
Or a chiropractor.
Or a
Yeah.
chiropractor.
Right.
And somebody who says that, they do Reiki, I mean, yes, they could be doing other stuff too, but they are putting themselves out there as a Reiki expert. I don't do Reiki. I'm doing more of the mental and
Mhm.
connecting to your higher self. I'm a higher self interventionist. Now I'll come up with something, but
Okay, people, Samantha needs some suggestions. If you have an idea, put it in the comments section, please. We like audience participation.
And what I'm going to throw in there is if any of our followers are veterans and you know how much we love our acronyms, we'll just
Give her
cram
an
words.
acronym.
We'll just cram words together to make a really cool sounding acronym. That's what she needs.
yeah,
Yeah, an
that's well, because the thing is, there is a starting point at which I feel like then from the knowingness,
Mhm.
you can easily say it. Like I'm referring people to Will and Allison all the time.
Oh yeah.
I just, told someone about Toby. I send people to Judy all the
Yeah.
time,
Mhm.
because I know that in my wheelhouse of things, like there's some crossover of what we do,
Sure.
but yet I know that if someone wants a certain volume of information, they're better off going to you because I know what that feels like to have
Sure.
worked with you.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I kind of feel like that starting point that sends people in the.
Yeah, but even so, like for us, it's like we know that with specific clientele, they may not get what they need through this type of session, through a higher self session or a channeling session.
Mhm.
They may get something more or get something better from you're more adept at doing this. So we're gonna send them to you first.
Yeah.
And then if they need that deeper dig, then by all means come and get a channeling session.
Mhm.
It's
We
and
all
that's
work in harmony.
Yeah, but
right.
see,
And
that
that's the
person,
beauty in it.
but that person out there who's going, I feel pain,
Mhm.
okay, first, is it emotional or physical? I
Mhm.
deal with emotional pain. Well, see, that's the thing is that it all, the physical starts with the emotional, like it all
Yeah.
kind of, but I know you guys just have to trust us.
You have to trust yourself.
That's right.
Well,
and
that's why
know that you're going to be put in touch with the practitioner that
whoever
you
pops
need.
up.
Right.
It's understanding your intuition and your discernment of where it needs to lead you to the appropriate person, because not every
Right.
single person is the appropriate person for you. So just allow yourself, just don't jump at the first thing that comes into I was going to say yellow pages, but that doesn't exist anymore. But the first Google search you do, don't jump at the first Google search.
But if you
Allow
are
yourself-
guided to a practitioner, it also might be because they can guide you to the right practitioner.
That's true.
Yep.
That's
because
true.
there are sometimes people will come to us and it's not our wheelhouse. And so, but we know such a variety of people that we can refer them to the right person.
Yes.
But so if you encounter somebody from the old energy, you're going to recognize it because there's going to be rules. They're going to use words like shouldn't, can't, doesn't, won't, those types
Limited.
of negative words. Yeah.
Mhm.
That indicate that there's only one way and it's their way,
Mhm.
or one practice and it's their practice. And I have to tell this funny story. I don't think we've told it yet on the podcast, but when we first started out and we were going around to various places to do channeling, was 2019 maybe?
Yeah, that would have
We
been
were
2019.
pretty new at
It
it,
would have
and we
been
went
you
to
were
a
still
local,
no, 2019. You weren't inducing me. So, okay. Yeah.
pretty,
I had
and
to-
it might have been when I was inducing you. I don't remember exactly, but we went to a local spiritual center and we set up. And by this time we had done it a few times and we knew that the information coming through was pretty profound and pretty amazing. And the energy was high level and people were having very positive feedback. In fact, we were always getting just positive feedback. So we get done and the way that we do it is that I send little 3x5 cards to everybody in the audience with a pen. And I tell, just write down a question, whatever you want to ask the collective. So I collect them all. And a lot of times they're similar. So I decide intuitively, and after having done this a number of times, I understand how to ask the question in a way that will elicit the best response for that person, but also for the whole group.
Not to lead, but just to structure the question in a way that
Oh, yeah. Not to lead for a particular answer, but just to structure it in a way that's easy for the collective to answer appropriately. And that maybe combines a couple of cards if that's the case.
Yep.
So anyway, we got through the whole thing, and this woman was waiting in line to talk to us afterwards. And she comes up and she's like, "You did not ask my question the way I wrote it on the card." I mean, I was first of all shocked because I thought she was going to compliment us or something, and she
Oh.
didn't.
Oops.
Right.
And I didn't have my sea legs yet. I was still new at this, and I wasn't expecting to have to defend myself. And I was like, well, I asked this intuitively, based on, well, I've been doing this. Y'all have only been doing this a year because we tell them our bio at the
Yeah.
beginning. I've been doing this for 25 years. Y'all will come to understand, whatever it was.
Whoa.
I was so shocked that like my jaw hit the floor. I had no idea what to say to her. Of course, I thought of lots of great
newbies.
things to say after the fact.
A lot of great things to say if it wasn't a
Snarkily.
a spiritual place. Yes.
But I'm past
Wow.
that now. But at any rate, it was interesting because really it was her learning. It was her learning, her lesson about control, judgment, all of those things. And whether she learned it, I don't know, but it wasn't about
It wasn't
us.
your problem. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't as much about us as it was about for her learning, but that's the old energy. I've been doing this 25 years. I know the best way
And
to
that
do
isn't
it.
to take away from people who have been doing it 20,
No.
30, 40 years.
But if they're
It's
using
not.
that as an excuse
Yes.
to push their agenda or push their rules, then that's a problem.
Yeah, it's a struggle. I mean, we're not by any means saying that we are the foremost experts in anything.
Absolutely not.
We have a lot to learn ourselves. It's just from this, these are more of understandings and concepts and struggles that we've been through and what we've experienced through our client sessions of how the universal energy that we all live in
Mhm.
has shifted. The paradigms have shifted
And continue to shift.
continue to shift and
Mhm.
expand well beyond many of our comprehensions. And it's the paradigms and the paradigms that we have existed in and now that we're moving into. And what I'll say too, it's the stagnation of certain
Right.
energies
Right.
that get entrapped within those the boxes that we've put ourselves in. And so I, for myself, and I can only speak for myself, through this whole process, I have not limited myself by saying I can only channel one energy, or, because that's what was told to us right from the beginning is you're an open channel. You, whatever frequency that is, tap into it. Well, at first it's like, oh boy, that's pretty,
Because
that's
then you're
pretty
going to
heavy.
have
like, oh my God,
bad
right. Oh
things
my God.
come
Oh,
up.
what am I going to do? I have not limited myself by saying, well, I'm only going to channel in this frequency zone because I know that's where the good frequencies are. No, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, you're a human. What do you know?
Right, exactly.
It's like-
I'm a muggle. I just, I live under a rock. It's understanding that the fluid aspect of where we live now is open to everything. And we've mentioned this in the past that, the aspect of negative and, entities and attachments and all that stuff, we don't have that in our paradigm, meaning in our paradigm. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist in somebody else's paradigm.
Yeah, it's not part of my reality.
It's just not part of my reality. Does that mean that clients don't come and have that as part of their reality? No, it does mean they come to us with that as part of their reality, and we handle it accordingly through their higher self, through their energy, aspect, the connection that I make with their higher selves and what might be attached to them. It's still not part of my reality, but it's part of my connection point for their healing, for their growth, for their expansion. So, yeah. So it's, I'm trying to be somewhat sensitive because I understand that, yes, there are many practitioners that have laid the groundwork and foundations well before us.
Mhm.
And there's going to be many that are going to come beyond us, and we're laying the foundations for them. And it's to understand that I'm not taking anything away from anybody else. We're not taking anything away from anybody else. It's just that things are progressing so fast that we have to remain so fluid and so accepting of the fact that we're creating our own realm of reality, and there are no boundaries in those realms. That's all.
There aren't.
Well, I was thinking about how when I started down this path, I was like, I want to be a tarot reader,
Sure.
just show me how to read the cards. I want to be able to do that. And I did that for the majority, like 25 years, I did that. And I began to realize I don't always want to carry these around. This is becoming an encumbrance. And so I began to learn how to work without the cards. Well, when I left that paradigm, that's when things went wide open. And I had to trust myself a lot more. But what became my mantra is somebody who said, they would say, well, can you see what my aura is? And I'm like, I don't read auras. And then I'm like, but let me look,
Right.
And so I started to say, I don't know, I'll give it a try, and that's become my thing. I don't know what I don't
That's
know what I
good
can't
attitude.
do
That's right.
until I
right.
try.
That's right.
And what I've discovered is that I've been able to do everything that people have asked me to do because I've been like, I don't know. And so what my journey has been like now is that I am constantly, every single session is like new. I get new information,
Yeah.
A different feeling of energy. I learn more about what it's like on the other side. And I'm sitting there with my clients just as enthralled and fascinated by the information that's coming through. And yes, there's crossover, which I like because it offers more validation when there's certain shared experiences that the various souls have and stuff. But what I love is just that there's this ever widening, it's like, somebody said, well, can you tell if there's anything going on inside my body? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me try. And so I sat there and I'm going, well, how would I scan the body? I could go, ooh, or I could.
Oh, the same thing that you did with the portals. You were like, I don't know. Let me try.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, it's crazy.
I can move a portal. Let's try.
It's so, ask me to medically, do the medical intuition where like you do the psychic surgery. I don't know. Let me know. I'm not going to go there. I don't want to try that. So forget it.
Not yet.
Well, yeah.
Right.
If it comes up and somebody's in dire need of it, who knows? But I think I would freak out in the middle of it and my hands would get stuck in their body because they're all solid again. I just sorry that image, but it's so endlessly fascinating. And it's part of the spiritual progression of like, if you did go to church, a lot more people used to go to church, and it's not so much now, but if you did go to church and then as you go along this path, you might start going to like I started off going to Unitarian church to get back into kind of the church thing and to have fellowship. And I was like, no, that's too much in the head. I went to a Unity church and I was like, holy crap, this is super in the heart, and it took me a bit to adjust to that. But I really liked it because when you're off on this journey, you're on your own.
Yeah.
So to have that camaraderie is so important. And after a while, I realized as much as I enjoyed getting together with these people, they didn't get me. I didn't get them. And I was just off on this journey by myself. And so much of it is you're out of bounds. When you talk about leading edge, you're on that leading edge. You are continuing to grow the whole vastness of what's known in our reality. And as you push on that leading edge, you're just creating all that information for everyone else to then come along and consume. And so then you begin to find your tribe on the leading edge. So there is that, if you're lucky, you go from point A to point B. I say if you're lucky, but everyone's journey is different. So it's just as magical or crazy or lonely or whatever, and for its own reason. But when you get to that leading edge and you begin to find your tribe, and it's not to say, hey, we'll always be best friends. We'll always be together. We'll always,
right. For sure not.
But there is that flexibility of this feels good for right now. And it took me a while to get comfortable with you guys because whenever I've gotten comfortable with anyone, it's like, I try to say all the right things, do the right things, not be a bother. Because for me, I always got kicked out of the groups, kicked out of the club because of the rules breaking. But you guys are just like, Samantha, what? Breathe more deeply. Give it a try. Why not?
Right.
And there's an aspect of that too. It's also being mature enough that, the aspect of being kicked out of somebody else's group. That's because in my opinion, that group isn't mature enough to actually have the tough discussions.
Yeah.
If there's somebody within the tribe or group or community or whatever that, it's starting to make the group
making waves or
feeling uncomfortable, whatever. You don't shun them.
Yeah, that was a
You-
weird.
you
These are
don't-
spiritual groups.
Right. You don't shun them. You don't open the door and kick their butt out the door. You go, hey, come here. Let's have a talk. Let's see. Maybe there's something that maybe I'm not understanding, or maybe
Right.
there's something that, you're not, that we can both come to an understanding. That
And
is a human thing.
Right,
And unfortunately,
right,
that is
right.
a human perspective that is very difficult to get over. But when you find that you can do that, there is a level of growth, not only in your own human spirit, but in your your energetic spirit.
Mhm.
But so many people are
Because
reluctant to do that.
if you have those conversations, then the person will come to their own understanding
Yes.
that maybe this group isn't my best
right.
tribe and I'm going to move on, but you don't
Right.
kick them out.
You don't kick them out.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that, there's this leading edge aspect. Shortly after our awakening, and we were doing our Reiki training, and we moved on to another Reiki master and took subsequent training from them. One of them became a mentor of mine for a little bit. And she's like, I want to be your mentor, but you're doing things that are so far beyond the script that I don't even know how to mentor you.
Miss Betty, we love her.
Yes.
Oh,
That
Yeah.
was amazing. And the reason it was amazing is because she was brave enough
Mhm.
to tell him that, and not to say, well, here's what you have to do. In other words, not to keep you in her control.
Right.
She knew that she was being called to help you on your path,
Yeah.
but
I love
for her to
that.
keep you as a mentor would have squashed you for a while and made it harder for you to open up to your own gifts.
And she had been doing
Mhm.
this stuff for 40 something years.
So that's the
Jeez.
kind of person who was raised in that old energy and working in that old energy, but had enough wherewithal and understanding to be flexible in the new energy.
To see the expansiveness
Right.
of the new energy, for sure.
That was a beautiful thing
Yeah.
that she did.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to say before we close
Aw.
really is, well, she's still alive. She's
Oh, yeah.
just
No,
moved.
but I just love that. Like
Yeah.
that's just to me soothing. If I had had that opportunity, but a lot of times you end up, it's because people feel that you're powerful. And I always thought, oh, they're just pumping you up, but no,
They
but
feel
that,
threatened.
yeah, they feel threatened. And again, it goes back to the paradigm of, I must keep control of this group or I will lose
Right.
my minions. And,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons why I refer so many people out to you guys and Judy and other people, because no one is my minion.
No.
I want them to come and enjoy whatever I have to say, and then just as easily come and enjoy what everyone else has to say, because we all are helping to fill in the holes of knowledge
And-
that we all have. So,
And we want to empower them.
just
We don't
to-
want to
Yes.
keep them dependent upon us.
Right.
either.
And we've talked about abundance before, but it comes down to the fact that there is enough for everyone. Doesn't matter what it is, what you do. There's enough for everyone.
Mhm.
And I'll challenge any other practitioners that are out there that feel as if they have to keep all of their clientele under their own roof. Start referring out. Refer out some new clients that
It's
you
the
don't feel like
best feeling.
don't fit your mold, or don't, but yet you feel pressured you have to because they came to you. I challenge you to refer them out to somebody else and see what takes place from the universe.
Mm.
My guess is more clients are going to start to show up, because it's a balancing act for the universe to handle the clientele for you.
Mhm.
If you show the universe that you're open enough to say, you know what, nope, this isn't a client for me. But I do know somebody that can handle this. Then you're like, all right,
Mhm.
here's a few more for you that fit exactly what you do. And it's a beautiful cycle that takes place. We see that over and over again in our practice. Nope, client's just not the right one for us. We'll refer it out to Samantha, Judy, somebody else that we know. And there's two more right on the back end of that one. So I challenge you to do that, to take it and give it a try.
Yeah, the universe takes care of you.
Yeah,
Now, what
for
were
sure.
you trying to say?
I was just going to
Sorry.
mention the last. That was like such a, oh, honey.
I know. Were you? Like,
Hey, I'm inspired today. Leave me
Wow, I
alone.
guess so. I was just going
It's that
to
coffee.
leave us on this last
where the
note,
hell did that come from? Yeah.
kind of a description of the new energy. This is where we're headed. So we had a client recently who is a holistic MD, and he has a wealth of knowledge and tools in his toolbox.
Yep.
Fantastic. And he has made a difference in a lot of lives because he would pick up whatever tools and use them. So he had essential
Mhm.
oils or aromatherapy, or Well, that is the same thing, right?
Yeah.
He might refer to an acupuncture, or he has supplement, just all kinds of different things. And what his higher self said was, yes, those tools have been very helpful for you over the decades, but now your toolbox is becoming baggage. So not only are we supposed to alchemize, we've moved into alchemizing our tools in different ways and new ways and all of that. Now it's almost time to get rid of the toolbox itself and be, what they said is, you're going to be,
Yeah.
you're going to be the healing. You're going to be the shaman. You're going to be what is needed for each of your patients. So it's about embodying our I am presence and being that in every encounter with your client or your relationship, the people that you meet.
Yeah.
Like how you create that space and they enter into that space, and then whatever is supposed to transpire,
Yes.
it just comes through because
Yes,
it's
because of
them
who you
calling
are.
it through.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Look at that. I got
So
it.
That's where we're headed now. It's a fantastic, fun
beautiful.
place where we're going.
Yeah.
This new earth, this new paradigm, new understanding.
And
Yeah.
it takes, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say this now. It takes so much responsibility off of us because we're not, I mean, like before we had to learn how to do the tools, and then we had to learn how to do them correctly. And then we started playing around with the tools and doing different things with the tools. And now we're getting to just set the tools down, realizing that we have all of it within us
already there.
And I'm telling you, like the difference of doing like mediumship to channeling, like you just sit back and you just let them like use you and it just goes through. I feel like that's cheating because it's just so lovely.
Well,
But that is what this is. It's like you're allowing people to step into that space and you're like, let's begin.
it's funny because when we do channelings and I'm, not that I begrudge it or anything, but a lot of times I'll just kind of make a little quip or something. She says, Allison will say, man, you got the easy job. All you do is sit in a chair and just go out.
I got to do all the
So,
left brain stuff.
I'll own some of that, but yeah.
But like you said, it is about stepping into the fullness of your I am.
Yeah,
And so you have to be courageous enough and trusting enough to do that.
for sure.
So it's not like it's
that's
a
not
cakewalk.
half-assery there.
Yes, you have to stand up and be that.
Yeah.
And you all will stand up and be that as well. If you're watching this, then you're headed into that new earth with us, and we are excited about where we're going and who's with us and this fun world that we're creating. And we thank you for being part of the Out on a Limb podcast. Like and subscribe and share if you will. Comment if you'd like, and we will see you next time.
See you guys.